I'd just like to start off by acknowledging the land that we all gather on, and on behalf of the presenters, pay our respects to the elders, both past and present. And I'd also like to acknowledge the youth in the room, who obviously will go on to become our future leaders, if not already so. Well, we just heard from the deadliest. Very inspiring. But as my predecessor always said, now we're going to listen to the number one region. Not just to put any pressure on anybody over there. I remember 2 years ago we did some presentations, and in my region I had to beg, blackmail, and beg again, and further blackmail, and take money out of my own pocket to get a presenter. This time everyone wants to present. But anyway, I'd just like to welcome to the stage our three presenters, Greg Livermore, the CEO of N1 Lands Council, Helen Drow, the CEO of Moombaleen Lands Council, Tenterfield, and N1, of course, at Tinga, and finally Miss Fiona Snape, the CEO of Tamworth Local Aboriginal Lands Council.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch. Pretty hard act to follow that first one. Well done, Andrew, and the crew up there. Firstly, on behalf of myself and my co-presenters, I'd like to acknowledge elders, both past and present, and the traditional owners of this country that we stand on and meet on this week. We've got a couple of slides to present. It's probably not as flash as the Wonnarua mob there, but look, we'll do our best. We've got a lot of stuff that we do on country up our way within the northern region, and there's 14 land councils in our region. They're all on that banner over there, but I'm from N1, right up on the edge of N1 Country and Wonnarua Country, Tinga. A lot of you fellas would have heard of Tinga. It's where all the good football players come from. But anyway, we'll get the show rolling. So Charles, if you don't know, is our councillor for the northern region. So we've just got to touch off on a couple of things. So with the Amaroo Local Aboriginal Land Council, a lot of this stuff that we're doing up our way is on country, and one of their projects that they've completed recently was the Kids on Country project, where they get all the kids out on country with elders. And for those of you that don't know, Inglebar, was an old Aboriginal reserve back in the day, and it's good to get those kids back out there, and even the elders on country, because it gives them, you know, it's probably something we don't do enough of now, is get elders and our young people together, out on country, physically doing stuff on country. It's all good to look at pictures and all that stuff, but I think at the end of the day, with a lot of our mob, we learn by doing things. And there's a good story behind that one.
Traditional burns down the back, canoe rides down the river. It's all to employ our local community. At the end of the project, we're hoping that whoever's employed on this property, the income that we derive from it will be for the community.
Inglebar Reserve sits on the banks of the beautiful McDonald River, and more than 50 Aboriginal families lived there from 1893 to the 1940s. The 40-hectare area of land was acquired by the Aboriginal Land Trust in 1975, and land was later transferred to the Amaroo Local Aboriginal Land Council. The last family moved out of Inglebar in the year 2000.
Our main game is to teach people of the culture, have the wider community understand our culture, and what happened on this property is very cultural significant to our people.
As we drove around the property and stopped here and there to soak it all in, we could see the remains of the homes of the past, including foundation stones and chimneys, camp ovens and bedsteads, with some of the old houses still partly standing. We ran into community member Timothy Naylor, who had very clear memories of what the homes looked like once upon a time.
And someone's, like as you can see, this is the fireplace from where the old stave was. It was only just a room there and a room on this side. But then someone's coming later on in life, started building onto it, so an extra room, and yes. And before it was only a dirt floor too. And you can actually see where people's been putting the rafters, old rafters, lived in it, and yes. But my auntie and uncle lived in it for a real long time, they did. And anyway, we weren't staying with uncles or aunties, we were staying with their grandmothers and grandfathers, and yes, we all had a big, large, and especially all different families too. It wasn't just one group, it was just all different mobs, so. But we all joined together, and yeah.
That sense of community remains very strong in Walker, and Inglebar is integral to that spirit and economic growth into the future. Amaroo LALC has partnered with Northern Tableland's local land services to preserve Inglebar's history, as well as establishing the Learning Centre. The LALC was also successful in its application for funding in the 2015 round of the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council's Community Fund. Mark Davies says NSWALC's support made an incredible difference to their long-term plans.
Without that community fund, that injection of funds from our support network, our major body, to our community we're not as economically as grown as some of the bigger louts. I've learnt more of our people, the culture. I've grown so much as an Aboriginal person by being in the network. The support of the network is unbelievable.
Councillor Charles Lynch visited Walker for Amaroo LALC's opening of its camp kitchen earlier this year at Somervale Reserve through NSWALC's Community Fund. He says well-directed funding can bear wonderful fruit when partnered with creativity and commitment.
When you look at the drive of the Lands Council today, the young chair, Corey Powell, the CEO, Mark Davies, the current board, they're all inspirational people. And it just shows that by working together, what can be achieved for the betterment of the whole of community.
There's already been quite a bit of work on the site, with the slab poured, meeting sheds set up for natural resource management classes, and the first 2 cabins well on the way to completion for tourists to stay when cultural activities begin. It's Amaroo LALC's long-term dream of economic development step by step, with cultural teaching and empowerment, utilising a very special piece of land.
Just the peace and quiet, and sort of get back to sort of where you're, sort of quiet and within yourself, I suppose it is. And what would you call it? Inner peace with yourself.
Memberlin Local Aboriginal Land Council are working in partnership with Elders and TAFE. We started with a TAFE course that taps into the talents of Tenterfield's gifted and enthusiastic Aboriginal cultural knowledge holders and artists. We got together some local expertise to co-design and deliver workshops that incorporate art practice, traditional weaving, bush tucker and other skills. Currently, We've undertaken a Cert 3 in cultural tourism, combined with Tenterfield, Guyra, Armidale and Glen Innes, to take advantage of growth in the regional tourism market. It's great to see the dedication and passion of our elders to pass on culture for our future generations.
Yeah, some of you land councils or some of the communities in the room may be familiar with the Part 4A handback under the National Parks and Wildlife Service Act. We've actually been meeting now up there in between Armidale Lalk and NSWALC for the last 4 to 5 years, trying to organise the handback of the Mount Yarrawick Nature Reserve, which is country just outside of Armidale. And one of the things we've done there, it's been a long road, and for those of you that haven't experienced that process, be prepared for some long discussions, certainly in relation to giving land back to our people or to us. So in readiness for that day, we've actually met with other communities where they co-manage land with National Parks and Wildlife Service or Office of Environment and Heritage. And in the slide there, the top one is taken out at Dandry Gorge. So for all you people out in that northwest region, there's some beautiful stuff there. We looked at the signage, and that signage there on the top. And the bottom one is at Derria Aboriginal Cultural Place at Narrabri. What we wanted to do was to have a look at some of the signage the other mobs were using. So for those of you that are familiar with the old National Parks and Wildlife Service signs, they belong, we felt, that they belong back in the 70s or, you know, when they first started putting up those signs. A lot of our interpretive signs, we wanted to have a modern day feel and particularly with some of the colours. And so we want to be ready for that handback and hopefully have our young people as well as our communities involved in that signage. And for those that have been to those places, it's great to be there and look at that signage, and it really sort of leaves that lasting impression on you. And I'd just like to thank the mob from out in that northwest region for welcoming us as a group of people into those communities. Unfortunately, we didn't get an opportunity to get out to the mob. Our tour was pretty well, well planned. We were only in certain places for certain amounts of time, but thank you all. So, just next we're going to have the Aboriginal Reference Advisory Group video. This was taken for the 10-year anniversary.
NSWALC and the Aboriginal Reference Advisory Group have had a strong relationship for the past 10 years since we started, and they supply funding, training, tools, buildings to our camping areas, plenty of things like learning centres out the Willows. They do water testing on our river.
The Aboriginal Reference Advisory Group has gone from strength to strength over the last decade, with the Regional Land Care Award for Indigenous Land Management, recognition of the long-term commitment of the Lalks. 8 Lalks across the region work together for empowering land management, from environment concerns to caring for country and cultural site identification. ARAG Chair Mark Davies says the Lalks are very close.
In the bigger picture, we'd hope to continue our involvement with ARAG, because I think it's important for us as our cultural, especially us, the land councils in this region are sort of like little land councils out in their own, to have a network group that can come together and talk and discuss and learn from each other is a great networking. Amaroo started to bring a couple of our juniors out 18-year-olds that have just joined the land council to these meetings to involve them in it so the progressing can go.
Vicky Duncan from Ashford Lauk says the benefits extend way beyond what the eye can see.
It's a sense of belonging, ownership to me, spiritual. It's my culture and it's my duty as an Aboriginal woman to pass it on to our children. So, yeah.
The opportunities offered to Lauk staff and members not only increase their work skills, but Roy Bell from Jubulum Lauk says they're reminded to slow down and actually reconnect with country.
It's a bit full on, it gets a bit full on at times. So, you know, I'm working in the land council, it's 100 miles an hour, and you're doing various different things. It's not just nailed down to one part of work. But as for the study side, I think it's a real, I hope it's an ongoing thing, and other Aboriginal people get to experience it because it's tailored for Aboriginal learning. You know, a lot of it's outdoors, hands-on experience, visiting sites, and just a lot of discussion. You know, Aboriginal people learn best by hearing, talking, seeing, touching, feeling. You're not stuck in a classroom the whole time.
And once out of the classroom, it's all hands on deck or on country, as Helen Duro explains.
I've had a few projects, one in particular that we've just completed, like a stage one of it. We put in a walking track at Curry's Gap, which was an old mission site up at, well, it wasn't a mission site, it was a shared place where our families, my families, moved to when they came from Toomala. So we've got some funding through ARAG to put in a walking track, put up some signs, so we can reconnect kids and school teachers and the community back to country.
As CEO of Moombaleen Lauk, Helen leads a very busy life, as CEOs do. Moombaleen's ARAG membership is helping her expand the Lauk's expertise to include producing bush foods.
We've also done some seed collecting. Okay. I'd like to do some more of that. I'd like to get some more of our community involved. And I'd also like to, I've currently, myself and another guy in our community have enrolled in a Certificate 3 in horticulture with looking at bush food production. And we also applied for another grant to put in a nursery to look at producing our own bush tucker, and then with the shed out on our other little property.
Harry White has been ARAG Executive Officer for 10 years, making sure the Lauks are given quality guidance and education.
One of the things that Northern Tablelands Local Land Services sponsored this year through TAFE is that we're sponsored for the Certificate 3 in Aboriginal Site Works, and all of the Lauks within our region have participants within that course. I'm actually the head teacher, and we've got 16 students, and the purpose of that is to set up a network of Aboriginal site field officers who can go out and identify cultural heritage values on properties.
Harry says the whole community benefits.
Not only for the land councils, but also for the farmers, the landowners, for council, for developments, and creates a big service to the community. It's also an enterprise. So by giving them a Certificate 3, which is a very high qualification, it's an AQF qualification, so it goes right around Australia, and the students that I've got have absolutely powered through this course.
So why would they power through a course like that? Harry White says it's all about connecting with countrymen and countrywomen and working as a family.
The feel that we get as Aboriginal people when we get out of the office and go on the country, the transformation is tremendous. Our people have got a lot of knowledge, and what we're endeavouring to do is to mix the traditional knowledge with the scientific knowledge. One of the big sayings that I have is that whereas non-Aboriginal people learn to live off the land, Aboriginal people learn to live with the land. Put those two together and you have a pretty deadly combination.
So for Nungaroo Local Aboriginal Land Council's new administration building in Crindi is up and running on the site of the old Northern Region office in Lotus Street. The move was made possible after Crindi Lalc's business case was endorsed by NSWALC, which has divested the land to the Lalc at no cost. Yeah, that's a magnificent building. Economic development, this is on Trelawney, a video on Trelawney, that as I speak, the conveyancing's been done. It's been a divestment from the ILC, and that's been another long conversation as well, but one that's paid off. Hi, I'm Fiona Snowden, I'm the CEO of the Tamworth Local Aboriginal Land Council. NSWALC have assisted us in developing a farm plan. The Trelawney station's owned by the ILC. We have a 3-year lease from ILC, and we hope to get that property divested back into the Lalc, which will be a great community asset.
The property was purchased some time back for our local Aboriginal community. For us, it's about looking at farming, cattle and sheep, and then the sale of those things and participating in the markets and showing people that we are capable of managing and farming these properties. The aims of getting the youth out to Trelawney is around employment, and it's about getting back onto certainly part of country. That even though we're farming it, there'll be some cultural activities that have been run in the past with our young employees, but also with young kids in the school holiday programs that we did in partnership with Nestle.
So basically what we're trying to do with Trelawney Station is get young people out here and get them involved in activities with other young people. So we run what's called the school holiday program, and during that time we'll bring some kids out here along with Nestle, and we'll do group-based activities. We'll do some painting, some dancing. I ran the dancing workshop this year, and the kids really enjoyed that. They got to make up their own dances and stuff like that and perform in front of each other, which was really cool.
Yeah, the co-funding model has been a success. With the NSWALC can see that it's financially viable, but the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, the funding is actually under their Indigenous entrepreneur funding, so that they could, there's been a lot of applications and that they can see that this model actually works.
There's lots of avenues out there that you can look into that's willingly, if they see it's for the good of your community, for the good of that town, they'll all come on board. You've just got to speak up and be out there.
The advice I'd give to Lalcs that are interested in getting involved in economic development would be not to give up if it doesn't succeed. Like I said, we've had a few stops and starts with Trelawney, but we're on the right track now, and it's great buy-in for the community, and it's going to be a great asset and a good result.
Yeah, we'll just have to run through these next couple of slides pretty quickly. We're running out of time. Well, hello, Jason's just asked me to say that the footpath mightn't be a big deal in some communities, but it's pretty big in my community over Tingra and also down at Walhollow. But the history of Walhollow mesh will be completed also as part of that project, which will be, I suppose, there for forever.
Red Chief Cultural Museum received funding to upgrade the Cultural Museum at the LALC building. New light displays, new lights, flooring and paint. The museum will be a keeping place for artefacts, paintings and much more.
Yeah, just with the basket weaving course that we run up at Tingra, that was a raging success. There's some good stories that have come out of that and continue. I'm quite happy to talk about that if people want further information.
There's just a Tamworth Aboriginal Cultural Showcase through the Country Music Festival, which NSWALC's the major sponsor for. So if anybody's got any up-and-coming artists, like we've always got Roger Knox and Warren H. Williams and some really well-known artists, but it's also a platform for young people as well. So if anybody wants to see us to perform, it'd be fantastic. And just the last one is the Opportunity Hub, which is one of the Ochre initiatives. Tamworth LALC's got the contract for the Opportunity Hub in one of the Opportunity Hubs. The photographs are there, the handing back of the reports that the Minister spoke about this morning. This one is one of the ones that work really well because it's held by an Aboriginal organisation, the governance is by an Aboriginal organisation, and all the staff that sit in there are all Aboriginal. Three of the young staff have actually come through the program. We currently help about 460 students intensively on a yearly basis, and up to date this year there's probably been about 860 additional students that have attended events by the Opportunity Hub too. So it's one of the Ochre initiatives, and that's us.
Look, just before we go, I've just been reminded that, Brother Roy, not only are we the number one region in the state, but we're also the best dancers in the state too. So look out, karaoke, here we come.